Hello everyone, welcome to the Money Club series. I am your host, Zar Azmi, and I am joined by the new heavyweight champion accountant, Sam Eljaban. How are you?
I'm good. Heavyweight. I thought
Well, you used to be super heavyweight, right? So,
Yes,
and you've
true.
dropped, what, 10 kilos?
Yes,
So
I have.
you've dropped down a weight class. Congratulations, you look fantastic.
I hope it shows on the cameras, man. Like, I'm feeling good.
You look great.
Thanks, man. Thanks. So do you.
Thank you.
You look
Thank
very
you.
refreshed for a new year. It's been a while.
Yes, yes, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
I can't believe we're almost through February.
It's sort of flying. It's
too fast.
It's pretty much the end of Feb.
Too fast.
March already.
Before you know it, it'll be Christmas.
Crazy.
How was your break?
Break was good. Didn't really go anywhere, so I stayed local. I went to the gym. That's probably all I've done since.
Well, it shows.
And you know,
It shows. We're proud of you.
it's it all stemmed. I have to thank a. He mustn't be a follower, but do you remember I got burnt on a video?
Yeah.
He called me a Big Mac or something.
Yeah,
He goes,
no.
You look
He
like a
said
Big Mac.
you were talking about
What did I thought?
macro factors or something, and he goes, the only macros you're counting is your mac and cheese or something.
Sorry, yeah. And then what it did, I go, because too many times we're always with the people we love, they don't want to hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
So they don't tell you you're fat.
And this is
Or
why
look
we
like
need haters,
That's
right?
That's
It's
right.
constructive feedback.
It keeps you in line, and it makes you sort of, it just keeps you in line. I think, so thank you, I don't know the bloke's name, but he said a few things.
Big shout out to the hater.
Made me get my act together, which is good. So now I stayed local, ate healthy, did some exercise, planned for this year. That's pretty much it. What about you?
Keep it up.
What did you
Well,
do?
man, I went traveling with the family, which was really good. It was my first big trip with my son.
Amazing.
I loved every minute of it. It was so good.
Uh-huh.
And we only went to two countries, Malaysia, where my family's from. So I introduced my son to the family there.
Oh, amazing.
And we spent a lot of time in Thailand afterwards. And it was a really, really good break, which is a good segue into what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think I learn a lot from different cultures, and what we want to cover today is, I guess, 10 things that we can learn from different cultures and from our experiences as well, because I feel like there's a lot of negativity to other cultures. Like a lot of people are quick to say, talk bad about a culture or a country or the people from those countries. I know people personally who just, all they talk about is the negatives, right? And there's negatives to every culture, even Australian culture.
There's pros
right?
and cons with
There's
everything.
pros and cons, but what we want to do is focus on the positives and what are the things that we can learn from these other countries and these other people across the world, because I feel like Australia is so isolated, right? And we can become really small-minded in terms of only our way is the right way. But I think traveling is the best education. And I think people are probably thinking, oh, how does this relate to money, right? Well, there's a lot of things we can learn from different cultures that we can relate back to our business, into our life, into our jobs, and we can become more successful.
Yeah, it might not directly relate to money itself, but it relates to you as a person, and pretty much linking that to your performance as a person in career, even in just relationships and things. So it helps you perform better, I think. The act of traveling to see these different people around the world, not only you learn from those cultures, but simply the act of traveling and going somewhere new, even if you don't take anything away from those cultures, the act of traveling has its own sort of benefits.
Well, you know, we're in Bondi here, right? And there's a lot of people in Bondi, they call it the Bondi Bubble. And people don't even leave Bondi.
They don't leave at all.
What they should do is at least go to Lakemba, right? And see your cousins, you know, like, or go to Harris Park, you know, and get a really nice Indian meal out there. And it's literally like going to a different country. So you can actually experience these things within Australia, because Australia is quite a multicultural country, right? So I think, you know, people need to get out more. And if you can't, like right now, travel is quite expensive, right? They're making up for lost time.
Yep.
But you can do it, right? You can experience different cultures through many different ways. And I guess what we have now, which we didn't have, say, 20, 30 years ago, is social media.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, for example, like when we want to know what the weather is like in a country because we're about to visit there. You can go on Instagram and just hit a place, right? And then you'll have all of everyone's posts, in the last 24 hours. So it's really easy to sort of learn other cultures. And I think I've taken a lot away from actually going there.
Yeah. We can get into the trap of, because Instagram and all that kind of thing is so prevalent now, you could sort of travel the world from your phone. You'll enjoy, say, the scenery, but you won't learn nothing from it. So I look at Bahamas and all that all the time. It makes you feel good, but you're not learning nothing. So actually going there, exploring, meeting people, going through the problems that come with travel, all that kind of thing, you're actually going to take a lot more away from it. So don't get caught up on your phone. Go and do something.
Do it in real life. Do it in real life. Okay, what's the first one, Sam?
Okay, so not touching really on the cultures, but the actual act of traveling I've found over time with a few trips I've been on, dealing with the unknown. So obviously when you have a trip planned, you plan it and you have all things in order of what you want to do. But as we know, things don't always go to plan. Things pop up and they sort of lead you astray from that plan. And it's how you deal with those problems that arise that sort of you learn about yourself. You learn how to deal with problems that pop up, which you can take back home and apply to your life, whether that's a relationship, the business, investing, money problems, all that kind of stuff. So dealing with the unknown, I think it sort of takes you out of the situation and makes you analyze it and go, okay, if it's something I can control, I'll focus on that instead of things I can't control. Because a lot of the time what happens is people are emotional. We get emotionally reactive to something that happens, and it sort of takes the logic away. So for example, if something pops up, instead of dealing with the airline's late or whatever, something out of my control, I'll just focus on being there on time. If I focus on what I can't control, I'm going to be stressed, have anxiety, all that kind of stuff. If I focus on what I can control, be there on time, have everything in order, all that kind of stuff, it'll limit, say, my anxiety. I'll enjoy myself a bit more. So I think the ability to deal with the unknown better via traveling and dealing with those problems that arise will make you a better person.
I think what people avoid is problems. So they go to places where they're familiar with, right? Okay. And that's why I think a lot of people tend to go to, say, Bali, for example, because they know it's very accommodating.
You get there and it's all Aussies.
Yeah, it's literally like going to Sydney, right? Yeah. So like what you want to do is you want to go to places where you don't actually know anyone. Right, and you want to deal with issues that you've never actually faced before, and you won't face here. And it's hard to get into that groove of going, okay, I'm going to throw myself into the deep end. I'm going to, fill my life full of problems, but it's actually very good for you, right? Like, and dealing with the unknown. There are so many things that will happen when you travel. Like it's endless. I've written down like an experience from each, I guess, a different country for each one of these takeaways, right? And one of the ones was when I went to Brazil, right? And I got taken through the favelas. And, what an eye-opening experience on how people live in those locations. And, one side of me was, I feel sorry for a lot of these people because they had no money. Then there was another side of me where I was scared because I was seeing people with guns and they looked real mean, and I had no backup, you know what I mean? But it was an amazing experience, and those memories will last forever. And like if I didn't put myself out of my comfort zone to experience those things, I wouldn't be here being able to tell you about it, right? And it's also led me to do other things where I've chased more experiences like that, and you become a more interesting person.
Yeah, no, definitely. A little situation, I actually have a little trip where I'm dealing with the unknown. I was in Cuba. Silly me, I was in a place called Trinidad. I don't know if you know Trinidad's a heritage sort of city. All the places look the same. They're like different colours, but they look the same. Cobblestone streets, all that kind of thing.
The old school, yeah.
Old school, but there's like no street signs, nothing. And we went out to a local sort of bar and got intoxicated, couldn't get home. I didn't know it. The streets were all the same. I got lost in Cuba. No one speaks English. I had nothing.
That's a good way of dealing with the unknown. Just get pissed in a
place. It helped.
A place that you don't live in.
And I pretty much walked for hours. Finally got home, but what I didn't panic. So I didn't get too emotional. I was just like, okay, I'm stuck. I don't know where the hell I am. I didn't go down too many shonky alleys or anything like that, you know, and eventually made my way home. But I didn't react emotionally. So, yeah, I think the more you travel...
So what'd you do, Sam? Just sober up and just try and come to?
I think I pretty much guessed. I sort of...
Had a dirty kebab?
Pretty much. From the street, some of the food there is a bit how you going, but...
But you got home.
Got home eventually,
Yeah.
and you know,
and you dealt with that problem.
you deal with it. It just you're stuck somewhere. You got to get home. You somehow make it work, and that's just, you know,
And that
dealing with that.
And
kind of
then,
thing.
so I guess that skill set you've learnt is now you're able to get pissed and find your way home
I can find
in
my
any
way
situation.
much better. That's
well done, Sam. Number
For
two.
next time.
Takeaway number 2.
Okay, number 2, very important one. This is probably the most relevant for sort of developing yourself, communicating. So, as you know, if we travel overseas, people are very different overseas. They communicate differently, eat differently. Everything is different about them generally if you go to a different culture. So the ability to communicate, more so I would say with people from non-English speaking background, your ability to connect with them, deal with them, communicate what you need or want from them is something you can develop while traveling. You can maybe do it around here in certain suburbs where there's some new migrants and stuff, but doing it overseas, it's really going to test your ability to connect with people, test your ability to sort of get what you want from someone or get them to help you in some way.
Well, you need something, right, when you're talking to someone.
Yeah.
So, you know, like I think one of the biggest ones for me was when we were in Colombia. I think that they speak Spanish,
Yep.
and not many people speak English, and there's not many Aussies there as well. So we had to sort of learn basic Spanish, and what happened was that those people, they really appreciated us making the effort to learn Spanish. And by the end of the trip, like we were ordering our food in Spanish and, talking to the hotel people in Spanish. And they loved it, and they were more willing to help, right? And I think I find a lot of people here in Australia become very close-minded to people who are non-English speaking, and they just close off. Right, and they're like,
It's impatience.
yeah, it's
That's,
like,
I can't
speak English. I can't understand you, and it's not. But what that experience has taught me, going to places like Colombia, is that you have to be empathetic and know that the other person is trying to get a message across to you. So, for example, here in Australia, if a foreign person comes, non-English speaking, they're speaking to me, I know what it feels like to not be understood. So I'll get my phone out, get Google Translator out, and I'll really try and help and accommodate, right? But I know that a lot of less traveled people who haven't gone through that experience, they might have only gone to Bali, for example, where all of them speak English, and 90% of people there are Australian anyway. They haven't encountered that problem. So once you've encountered that problem yourself, you will be more forgiving to people that are in this country, and you never know where that can lead you, right? You never know what family that person comes from. You never know what deal you can get through that person. You never know what door can open. But if you just sort of close off and go, all right, you don't speak English, I can't talk to you, you've sort of closed that opportunity.
It's stemming from you're just being kind, you're just being nice, really, at the end of the day. But a lot of people aren't like that, unfortunately.
Well, they haven't had to go through it, Sam. And once you've go through it and you understand that, okay, I'm in a non-speaking English country, these people don't understand what my first language is. You know what it feels like to be that minority.
Yeah.
And then so when people come here, like they need to be heard. And I guess I'm very passionate about this because my father came here not knowing English. And he got bullied, and he got into multiple fights because people would make fun of him, right? Instead of helping him, people would make fun of him. So I'm very, very empathetic with people that can't speak our first language. And it's because I've traveled and also those experiences my father had.
Oh, very good. I like that empathy. It does develop empathy. Just another quick one before we move on is when we communicate, it's not all verbal. So, you can talk, but you can also have non-verbal sort of things, the eyes, the
body
mouth,
language,
all that kind of stuff. So when you're traveling, especially non-English speaking place, for example, when I went to Cuba and all these other places, you don't always have to know what they're saying to understand their manner, how they're feeling, their mood. Although, you don't want to be dealing with someone with an aggressive mood. You sort of can tell they're going to do something bad, regardless what they're saying.
Yeah.
So
and
they're posturing.
this is the shit you can't learn on Instagram.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
you can't learn it on social media. You have to actually be there in person to be learning how to read body language.
Exactly. So if you're dealing with someone, you don't know what he's saying, but you might have done something, you might have, I don't know, whatever, you're just walking, you might have been in an area you're not supposed to be, and you can see him sort of clenching his fist, or he's got veins in his neck, he's, getting a bit aggressive. That's probably an extreme, but if you boil it down further, you can still look at people, how they're sitting and all that kind of stuff to understand how they're feeling, all that kind of thing. So it all amplifies your ability to understand someone, how they're feeling, and be able to communicate with them. So traveling will help you do that. You can bring it back here and actually really understand how people are.
Well, communication, I think, is the next big opportunity over the next 10, 20, 30 years because no one knows really how to communicate anymore.
We're losing it.
We're losing it. So if you can hone that skill, and I think you'll get better with your communication skills when you travel. You can be a better salesman. You can be a better business person. You can be a better husband. You can be a better wife, right? Like you can be a better father, whatever it is. Like if you can communicate and learn that skill, you will be able to solve a lot of problems.
100%.
Number three,
okay, we'll touch on this one, more down our alley, money. Okay, so money when traveling, I guess money pops up quite a lot. You deal with a lot of different things in terms of money when you travel. For example, you're exchanging your money for other currency. So you got to learn some maths there. You're going to be doing some calculations.
So I've got a story. For this one, I've got Argentina, when I went to Argentina.
Yeah.
So I went to change when I first got there. For our listeners that don't know, Argentina has suffered, a really, really bad economy for a long time now, and they still haven't really recovered.
Yep.
Beautiful country, almost like a New York, but a sort of a depressed New York with quite high crime. I went to change $1,000 US because I needed, I forget. Do they use pesos? What do they use?
It might, yeah.
Anyway, their currency, Argentinian currency, right? And they came back with a stack of notes, like massive, to the point where I actually didn't have room in my bag. I only had like a little bum bag thing, right? I didn't actually have room in my bag to put this cash in, right? It was $1,000 US. And I said to the lady behind the counter, I go, can you give me the biggest denominations? Because I'm thinking like, for example, you change it here, they give you $5 notes. I'm thinking that she's doing that to me. Give me bigger notes, And she goes, that is our biggest denomination.
Wow.
So that prompted me to learn about what that country went through for their dollar to be worth nothing, right? Incredible, man. Like it was an eye-opening experience. And I've never, look, we've gone to countries before where, our dollar has stretched quite far, but not to that point where it was just almost like you couldn't even handle the cash, right?
Yeah.
Crazy.
That would have been an inflation problem.
Hyperinflation to the max.
So the currency's worth nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, so that happens. So see, purely by you going to visit Buenos Aires or something.
That's where I was.
Buenos Aires, you found out, you learn about the economy. So it's good. It's opening your eyes up to international type money issues and stuff. Even the simple thing of budgeting for a holiday or traveling. Usually you're going to leave your job for a certain amount of time, or your business might not be working in the background for you. So you have to really stick to your freaking budget, otherwise you'll be stuck in Argentina.
Well, you got to pay rent back home.
You got to pay, exactly,
right? Or your mortgage back home. You got a business to run, or you've got to take annual leave from your job, so you've got to take that into account. And then you've also got to take cash with you overseas. You've got to have enough money in the bank, and traveling's not cheap at the moment. Like flights and accommodation are through the roof. So you need to really know where your money is going.
And even to the extent where, just say, I went to a few South or Mexico and the Caribbean. There's lots of markets there and stuff. You'll learn negotiation when buying things. So everyone, even in Bali, you learn a negotiation when you're buying stuff. So
you know what else you'll learn is you don't flash the cash.
Oh yeah, unless you want to get rolled.
That's right. So you learn to be a little bit more diligent with how much money you take out with you, when you go and pay for things, maybe have a separate pocket where you have like your actual spending money. Don't open up your whole wallet. You become very switched on with that sort of stuff, which I truly believe is a skill set in itself, because we're entering into a high crime rate now because cost of living is so high, right? Like it's happening everywhere in the world. So I think people need to be very, very switched on. And I think we've been blessed with being in quite a safe country.
Yeah.
But, you know, crime's going to go up.
Yeah. It's sort of telling us be humble. Even if you're doing well, others aren't. Don't flaunt it.
Yeah.
Don't flaunt it. Be careful.
Number 4.
Number 4, very important one.
This is probably my favourite one, Sam.
Yeah. It sort of stems from communication,
Yeah.
I would say. Probably next level. Customer service.
So my best experience with customer service has most definitely been the USA. And it doesn't matter if you're shopping at a supermarket like a Walmart, or if you're going to get takeaway at In-N-Out Burger, or you're going to a retail shop like Louis Vuitton. Yep. You tend to just get people who want to help. Like I remember walking into the In-N-Out for the first time, and it was one of those ones which was, I think it was like a sort of like a roadside diner of style one. Yeah. So we thought, you know what, we'll walk in. And we walked in, the guy behind the counter, he was probably about 50 years old. He had one of those In-N-Out hats on. He was behind the counter. He saw us walk in from afar, and he greeted us across the restaurant.
No way.
Welcome to In-N-Out, right? And this guy was genuinely really happy to be in his job and really happy to serve others. And like, I find it hard to even get a smile out of someone from Macca's here, right? And you can't even ask for a napkin or tomato sauce, you know what I mean? They actually don't know what to do. And these guys have been trained to communicate so effectively and to also provide that experience for the customer. And I guess, you know, their wages are low, they work off tips and all of that sort of thing, but it's ingrained in them.
It's part of the culture.
Yeah.
It's the culture of business there. Yeah, sadly it's not the same here. I know, even just going to the clothing stores here, sometimes you don't even get a hello. Like you walk in, have a browse around, walk out, no one even said hello or acknowledged your existence in the shop. You know, so it's not good. But yeah, they have the US has that kind of system where they sort of get rewarded for better service, which just builds better service over time anyway. So
well, it builds a brand, right? And this is what I tell the girls down at the salon, for example. I say to them, you know, deliver service like every single person that walks in is like your family. And we have created such a successful business because of that model. It's what we do at Luxland. Like the service that I provide my clients would have to be the best personalized service for a property investment firm in this country. And I'm confident in saying that because my clients tell me that, right? Yeah. They go to other firms and they see what it's like, and they always come back and say that. I mean, it helps me being not a really big corporation where I can offer that through like a boutique style of service, but it's so important because I would much rather have a smaller business which is known for great service than a massive business where customers just feel like another number. And you know, but big businesses can do it as well. Like look at Louis Vuitton, for example. Their customer service, even in Australia, is actually very good. Yeah. Like it's second to none. Like their service, you just can't beat them. And they're one of the biggest companies in the world, right? The guy who owns it's like the richest guy in the world. So it can be done. It just needs to be instilled from upper management, right? And I think we've got a lot to learn from these other countries. It's not just the States that do this. It's also a lot of the less developed countries as well that are trying to win your business. And I think we've become quite arrogant here in Australia where we're like, all right, well, business is always going to be good. Migrants are always going to come in. Our economy is always going to be strong. So we're spoiled, right? So we feel like, you know what? I don't need to serve that guy and go 110%. I'll just go 70% because I'm going to get paid anyway, right? But you can't think like that when you're trying to grow and you want your business to blow up and you want to be known as the best. Why is Louis Vuitton known as the best? It's not just their products.
Service.
It's their service.
It's becoming a differentiator, especially in Australia, I think, because there is no service. As soon as you show some service, I see it a lot in tax. So just the simple act of talking to someone and taking their call. I get a lot of clients saying, no, the accountants don't take their calls. They just want to talk to someone. Simply by answering the phone, talking to them, it might not even be very technical. Just by answering the phone, they like you a lot more and they'll stick with you a long time. So really, service is going to be customer service is going to be a differentiator. I saw a clip about Warren Buffett. He was talking about companies he's invested in, and he was saying how one of the guys, he developed a car leasing business, and he invested late on in this car leasing business at a high price point. But the guy's story who developed that car leasing business, he said all he did, his differentiator was service. He said Hertz and all these other guys, they had no service. So he didn't reinvent the wheel, he didn't do anything special, he just provided better service, and he developed a massive business around that. That's all he had to do.
And I can vouch for that, right? Because a lot of people ask me, how have you grown your businesses so quick? Well, it did take a long time, but it grew quite quick, and I'm quite young for what I've done. And it's that.
Service, yeah.
It's service. Like, I've spent more time with people. I've taken more people out for lunches. I've taken more people out to dinners. I've gone, like last week, I traveled 2 hours to sit with a client for a client to even just say no. That client said no last week, right? And you even said it to me. You go, Zah, all of these visits that you do in person and all of these things that you go out of your way for makes a difference because people want to deal with you.
Yeah.
Right?
Even it's a no now, maybe when he's ready or whatever.
He'll come back.
It'll be a yes.
He'll come back.
Because you actually went to see him. No one else is doing that.
I made the effort, right? I made the effort. And I think people here, they're not even making the effort to say hello when people walk through the door.
In the store, exactly.
Right? When people walk through your door, you should be honoured that someone has walked through your premises that you're paying rent on to advertise a business for these people to come in. But they buy you, right? It's just madness. If you're trying to grow, that is. If you want to stay average, then do whatever the fuck you want. We don't care. But like, if you want to grow, don't complain if you're not going that 110%. Let's keep moving.
Right.
Number 5.
Number 5. Okay, food. So traveling, food,
you love
different
your
cultures.
food, don't
love
you,
the
Sam?
food, man. Love the food. I guess where I was coming from with food is that when you travel, you see that food, it's really a cornerstone of some societies, keeping people tight, close-knit families, all that kind of thing. So food in a way that it reminds you of what's important in your life. Family is very important. So in my travels, the countries that had really solid family networks and looked after each other and probably are happier, they had a lot of things centered around food, their meals and all that kind of stuff. So just something I've seen.
Well, unfortunately, I'm going to bag Australia here, right? Yeah. I think that Australia, and we're very fortunate that we have. We're a multicultural country where we have a lot of different cultures that come here, and we have some of the best food. You know what I mean? You've got all the way from the Middle East, a lot of Asian presence. Anything you want, really, you can have here, right? And it's good quality as well. But the actual Australian culture, if you just think of Aussies, right, they don't actually have that love affair for food like, say, these other foreigners do. And, we're both from sort of migrant families, and food has definitely brought us together. I think in Australia, alcohol brings a lot of people together, right? But food is sort of not really a main motivator to get people to. It still is, but not as much as, say, the Arabs. Or like, for example, I'm going to use my experience in Malaysia because I've just gone to Malaysia and that's where I'm from. Yep. Food is massive because Malaysians, like a lot of Malaysians don't drink, right? So food has to be the big thing.
Main event. That's the main event.
We went when we went to Malaysia about a month or so ago. We only went for about a week, but because we have family and friends there, we were booked up breakfast, lunch, dinner, right? Because we had everyone wanted to meet Cassius, right? So what happens is each one of those, you get to the end of the week and you've actually eaten too much. Oh, I went the other way. You lost 10 kilos, I put 10 kilos on, right? In a bad way. And I needed a big detox after that. But food is really important to them, from breakfast to lunch to dinner. And at every single gathering, food is one of the main topics of conversations. Like, where are we eating? Where did it come from? Where did the dish originate from? Because there's so many different dishes. And it really gives you that common sort of ground and the appreciation for different cuisines as well, because there's a lot of things that I've never actually eaten before. And it's really cool because it gives you almost it's like a little project to work on, right? Yeah. You've got this thing where you're all taking part in it. You're all eating from, I guess, the same serving dish, and you can all talk about it. And it brings people together. Yeah. And it happens here as well. Like, everybody does it here, like at Christmas time and Easter, and everyone has barbecues and all of that sort of thing. So, but it's different in other countries. Like, every single country is different. Even in Asia, like, you've got Thailand and Malaysia, where I just went, right? Thailand's above Malaysia. They're connected to each other. The food's different. Yeah. You know what I mean? The way they eat's different. So, like, there's so much variety out there. I love it. It's one of the most enjoyable things that I do when I go overseas is eating different food.
Different cuisine. Yeah,
Great experience.
It's part of the experience, man. What's the next one?
Next one, degrees of happiness.
Okay, so traveling around, the happiest people I've ever met have been in the poorest countries. Big statement, but it's sort of.
I can vouch for that, Sam. I can vouch for that. So, I'm going to put one of my experiences here as Dubai. Dubai, we all know, has a lot of wealth, a lot of money. Yeah. But when you walk around and, you see all these rich Emiratis, and they look very miserable. I don't know if that's smiling. I don't know if that's just their demeanor.
They just got resting bitch face.
Yeah, exactly right.
We have it in the
blood. They're dripped in,
whatever,
everything, right? Yeah. Like, and they've got whatever they want, and they've got multiple wives. They've got property. Like a $50 million property, as in a house. There is you're considered lower class, right? It's just amazing how much wealth is in that country, and not just how much wealth, but how much people have the wealth. You know what I mean? And you walk around and you look at these people, and they don't actually look very happy.
They've won the game.
No one's really smiling. Yeah. It's one thing that I really noticed, that no one's laughing and sort of having a good time. Everyone's just sort of they've run out of things to spend money on, so they're just not happy. And then when I go to places like it's the poorer parts of Thailand, for example, mate, they'll be eating a 20-cent meal together, and they'll be sharing it on the beach, and
with no shoes on and ripped shirts or whatever.
And they'll be laughing and carrying on, and you can tell they genuinely love life, right? So it's
weird, isn't it?
Yeah. Does money really make you happy? It does. And I'm really fearful that Sydney's falling into that trap where it's becoming so expensive to live here. And people having to work so much harder to live here that everyone's stressed out, right? Like you only have to go onto your roads and make a small accidental mistake of maybe not letting someone in or something like that. Then all of a sudden it's on.
They want to kill you.
Yeah, it's on, right? And it's not because of you've made the mistake. It's just the fact that everyone's so stressed out living in this highly expensive city.
With that Dubai situation, I think in those sort of circumstances where they've got everything they want, why I'm thinking they might be sad is what else is there left for them to do? If they've won the game of life, they got 3 wives, whatever it is, Lambos,
they're bored.
They got money.
That's
bored. They're bored. So they've sort of conquered life.
I've got friends like this. They've made plenty of money. Their goals were really just to have a house and a couple of nice cars, have their kids go to private schools, all of that sort of thing. And they've done all of that, and they have the potential to do more, but they are just sort of living day by day, going, okay, well, what else do I do? And they lack purpose.
I was going to say, they don't have a purpose. So they might have won the money game, but they don't have anything driving them forward, which is why they get sad.
And this is a great thing for our listeners, because a lot of our listeners come from nothing, and they look up to us because we've come from nothing. And the greatest thing I think that I've done is come from nothing, but had that constant pursuit to be better, so I can make more money and I can make a bigger difference in this world, right? And I think having that constant pursuit and purpose in your life is really important to keep you alive, because you don't want 200 million in the bank, right? Like you're not going to be happy. Like look at these sad cunts in Dubai, right?
Exactly, they got all the money in the world.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like we don't want to become like that. And look, these guys are probably quite happy behind closed doors. I'm generalizing here, but you just don't see that. You don't feel that happiness, right?
I've got a quote for you. Bob Marley. You might have heard this one before. Have you heard, money is numbers and numbers never end? If it takes money to be happy, your search for happiness will never end. So Bob Marley said that. Someone asked him about how much he made at a concert, playing a
I feel
concert.
like you've told me that quote before.
Yeah, so you don't chase money, because money never ends, and you'll just be constantly chasing it. And there's another quick one before we move on. Immortal Technique, do you know that rapper? Immortal Technique?
No.
He's a bit controversial, political, old school rapper. He said about purpose, he said, the purpose of life is to live a life with purpose. So that's the purpose of life, is to live a life with purpose.
I love that.
That's
you know?
it's very
and I
simple.
get a lot of questions going on that. I get a lot of questions on what I want my son to do. Do you want him to take over the business, or what is it that you envision for him? And it's really just that. It's
have a purpose.
I want him to have a purpose
That he loves.
Whatever that is, like I want him to live that out, because I know that'll keep him going. Past for when I'm gone, you know. Whether it makes money or not, if it's something that drives him, and I prefer if it wasn't money, to be honest with you, because money's actually quite easy to make. It's a purpose, yeah.
A purpose.
That's
Keep him going.
What's what keeps me happy,
That's
you
it.
know.
That's it.
All right, let's keep going.
All right, slow on.
Number 7.
Number 7, real estate, assets and business. So traveling around the world, you see they're very common themes in every country. You just see how they're done differently. Massive wealth gaps everywhere I've gone, even to the extent of Cuba. I say Cuba a lot because it's a very different country. If anyone hasn't been there, go there. It's amazing to look at and experience.
So you actually enjoyed it? I've heard it's quite boring.
Loved it. Why? Did they say why it was boring?
Just because it wasn't as advanced as...
But that's why I loved it.
That's
so
why you
much.
like it.
I loved
Yeah,
it so
okay.
much. Man, you're driving, we're on a tour bus, like a nice new tour bus, doing a trip around. And there's dudes in farms with like donkeys and carts.
Yeah, you
with
won't see that anywhere
massive,
else.
like,
Yeah.
I don't know, those knife things that cut the soil. So it's
Old
just
school.
very, but they do
Yeah.
have modern stuff, but there's a lot of old school taints around
So there's
the
even
place.
a massive wealth gap in Cuba, right?
Well, yeah, and it's supposed to be communist, which is even funnier.
Yeah, so
and equal.
this is what I think I want to touch on the wealth gap a little bit, because in Australia, we're not used to the wealth gap. We're used to everyone having a fair go. And this is why when the wealthy get too wealthy, they try and suppress them, bring them back down, the whole tall poppy syndrome thing. And also, if you're very, very poor, then we need to lift you up, you know, so just to get you to
They just want to
middle
keep
class.
you in that sort of
So
medium there.
yeah, so they want everyone just to have a fair go, and it doesn't work like that in more mature countries. Like naturally what happens, like these Asian countries, even the States, they're very mature. The wealth divide gets bigger, and it's going to happen here. It's happening now, and people need to understand they've got to, which side do they want to be on? We all know which side we want to be on, but which side are you going to push towards? And this is why you've got to take, I guess, your future into your own hands. And when you go to these other countries that are more mature, and you see that wealth gap, and you see the reality of inflation, you see the reality of what happens when there's more migration and more people come to this country. Like a lot of Aussies, they complain that we get a lot of migrants coming here. It's not going to change, right? It doesn't matter how much you bitch and moan about it. It's not going to change. They're going to still. That's our currency as a
Government
country,
needs it
right?
too, yeah.
The country needs it, right? So you got to do something about it. And I think one of the ones that I sort of took note of is when I went to the States. We'll go back to the States. Is when I went to New York, and New York has some of the most expensive real estate in the world. And what I love about New York, it's very similar to Melbourne. You know, it's very multicultural. It's got the ability to hold a lot of people. Like Melbourne's it's set to have 10 million people in the next 30 years in terms of a population. Wow. I think New York is something similar, right? So, like, I've always been fascinated by New York because I've been very focused on doing a lot of work in Melbourne as well. And there's so many similarities, right? But the wealth gap is, like, if you watch that show, New York Listings, right?
Ridiculous.
Like, penthouses are going for $100 million. It's
and
crazy.
people are buying them. That's the thing. People are buying them.
And people are buying them, right? And you can't get rentals, you know? And it's that's where we're heading. We're heading to that type of society. And we need to go, okay, well, it's actually not that bad here. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make.
Right now,
now, it's not that bad, right? But it will get bad. It's going to get worse. All this bitching and moaning that you're complaining about how the government's operating the country, it's going to get worse. Like, it's not going to get better, but you can get better.
That's right. They don't care about our whinging. They have, like, our system is loosely based on America and Europe, UK, all that kind.
They don't give a fuck.
It's a capitalist system, and it's all about capital and growth and all that kind of stuff.
And you need to. And this is the thing. Like, I don't say this in a hateful way. No. Like the government doesn't give a fuck about you. You just need to give a fuck about yourself.
That's right. The game's there. You just
have to play exactly. So focus on yourself. Stop whinging and whining. Like, I've had to stop reading the news because it's non-stop complaints by the Australian society about how this country is run. And I have my fair share of complaints as well. But my complaints aren't going to change the country. So I think, okay, I'm going to pull out the quotes now.
Quotes, yes.
Bruce Lee said, don't pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength to endure a hard life. I don't know if that's word for word, but it's true. You know what I mean? Like, focus on yourself, get better, upskill, become more valuable in the marketplace. Stop whinging and whining, right? And just get on with it.
You know the game, just play the game. That's it, simple.
And it's a fun game too.
You can make it fun.
Yeah.
Just deal with people that support you. That's the thing they're missing. Anyway, next one.
Politics. I think we've got to get your dad on for this one.
Yeah, he's the expert political
both our dads,
reporters. I think. Yeah. Well, that's what happens in Australia. There's not politics is still very small. No one talks about religion and politics in Australia. Overseas, that's all you talk about.
Oh, really? You don't stop.
That the whole world is driven by religion and politics. Well, but here we don't talk about it.
Well, go back to I guess Malaysia. We talked about politics a lot because the government really fucked up there. You know what I mean? Very corrupt, and it really messed it really ruined the country, right? They basically robbed the country. And you just think, wow, like, we actually do live in a great country. And you look at these sort of stable nations. Singapore's a great example. So, we go back to Singapore quite a bit. Singapore was originally part of Malaysia, and then they sort of split off into their own country. Singapore's dollar back then was sort of similar to what it was with how our dollar is to Malaysian. That's called ringgit. But the Singapore dollar now is 1-to-1 to Australia. So, like, they set up themselves. They became very stable. And their real estate, for example, is through the roof. The economy's strong. It's the gateway to Asia for expats. It's a fantastic country, right? It's almost becoming too expensive to live there now. Well, it is too expensive, and a lot of Singaporean investors are coming here to put their money. So, politics does play a big part in your learning, because then you can go, okay, well, let's see what successful countries have done, and maybe look at where are we moving towards that sort of model, which I feel like we are, because we are considered the lucky country.
Yeah, exactly. Even when you break down, I can't remember who it was, but it could have been that Jordan Peterson. He was saying politics gets involved whenever there's more than one person. So between me and you, there's politics. Regardless of the whole big Labour, Liberal, all that kind of stuff, and overseas country politics, blah, blah, blah. When there's two people, there's politics involved, because you have some sort of thing, not that you want from me, but we're dealing with each other and we're always negotiating. That's essentially politics. So It's just interesting to see how different countries operate. Everyone has a different sort of model and different problems and issues. So it's just something interesting.
Look, there's good and bad. You know what I mean? Like here in Australia, like you can't give anyone a brown paper bag and get something done, right? And it's just a big no-no. But like that's normal practice overseas. You know what I mean? Like
you're oiling the wheels or whatever they say.
I kept on getting pulled over by these bullshit cops in Thailand.
They're just following
right?
you.
And they're asking for this international fucking bullshit driver's license when I was riding the scooter, right? And all they wanted was 1,000 baht, which is like $50. So mate, go away here. I'll actually give you a tip to fuck off. You know what I mean? Like it's a different world. Like imagine if you could do that. You'd keep all your demerit points. You know what I mean? You'd never lose any. Let's keep moving. Number 9.
Okay, traveling and stuff. What it teaches you, what it taught me, patience and sort of bringing back my level of expectation. So right now, really, I operate with a very low level of expectation. Why I do that is everything I get is a bonus. So I don't walk around sad because I'm not getting something. I walk around happy because I got something. Or I didn't get enough type of thing. So that type of mindset came and patience. So when you're traveling around, like we said before, you don't always have things go to plan. So it's going to test your emotions and your patience. So
I've got an example, right? Yeah. We're going to go to a country called Indonesia's, so I guess Bali, right? we had flights booked for through Jetstar, and we get to the airport, and Jetstar say, "Oh, well, your flight's been cancelled, and the next one's tomorrow morning."
Oh shit!
And this is Jetstar from Melbourne. So like we had to stay overnight in Melbourne. And I'm thinking, all right, Jetstar have got to be the worst fucking airline. You know, they're really fucking bad, right? And I hope we should tag them, right? And so they can improve. But there's always a fucking problem with Jetstar. And that was hard for us because we were like, okay, well, we had a wedding to get to. And, you know, we were worried that we were going to miss the wedding. It was also an inconvenience because we lost 24 hours out of our booked holiday, which was only like 3 or 4 days. So it was a big portion of it, right? But it just taught us. Like I guess goes back to dealing with the unknown. You know, like it teaches you patience, and we had to wait that 24 hours. And you got to go through those situations where problems arise, and you're going to have to wait it out.
And you can bring that back home. So all that kind of stuff you learn while you're traveling, your patience, testing that, all that kind of thing, bring it home. How many times do we have clients that want an instant return on money? When you're like, it doesn't always work like that. You have to be patient.
Those are the worst type of clients.
It's sort of like, it goes hand in hand in life. Yeah. Patience is what you need.
You need patience. Aggressively patient. That's how you need to be.
That's a good term.
Okay, the last one is renewed appreciation. And I always go through this when I come back home from overseas. I always miss home. As much as we, bitch and moan about, say, Sydney, our home. It's too expensive to live here. We hate it, blah, blah, blah. We all do it. Right, but when you travel and you go for, usually it happens when it's longer than a week for me, I always miss home. There's always things at home that I miss, and it's because of those experiences that we just spoke about, and it humbles you, right? It makes you appreciate what you have rather than falling into that trap of negativity and, complaining.
That's probably why you got a good mindset. You travel around, it allows you to reignite that appreciation of where you live.
And if I go away for a long time, what happens is when I come home, I actually feel like I'm still traveling because I go out and seek new experiences back home because I just really appreciate this country so much.
It's because you go to Lakemba and get kebabs. It feels like the Middle East.
Yeah. I'm at home out there, though. I love it. All right. Well, thank you, Sam. That was a great one. I loved that sharing our experiences through travel, and I hope you guys got some value out of it as well. And I know traveling's expensive at the moment, but try and get out there as much as you can.
Won't regret it.
All right, Sam. Thank you. No worries. Thanks, guys, for listening. We'll see you next time. See you later.
Take care.